My guest this week is Video Dave. Video Dave is a rapper, TV producer, beat maker, and writer who has worked behind the scenes for some of the most impactful entertainment of the last decade, all the while developing a music career that's seen him work with Method Man from the Wu-Tang Clan, and tour with Brother Ali, Open Mike Eagles, Serengeti, and more. He's also an actor, an editor, a graphic designer, a director, and a visual artist who brings all of these talents and life experiences to his music. His last solo album, Articulated Textiles, was a collaborative album produced entirely by Controller 7, and his latest work is in the new group Previous Industries, whose debut LP is being released by Merge Records this summer. And it gives me great pleasure to welcome to Revolutions Per Movie, Video Dave. Hi, Dave.
Hey, how's it going?
I'm doing great. Thanks for being here. I just want to tell people, if you're not following Video Dave on Instagram, he has one of the best live feeds ever. When it comes on, it's just, you're so connected with people. Last week, you were talking, you're playing some stuff you're working on. You're kind of frustrated with the mix. You're rapping over it. You're sewing at the same time. And then you're engaging and talking to people, and they're giving you information and back and forth. How do you find that? Like, are you, I mean, you seem so comfortable with it.
I appreciate that because wouldn't it be cool if I said, I appreciate it. I put a lot of work into that. No, I'm trying to figure it out. Like, I'm like, man, am I engaging enough? And then I'm like trying to get through something. I feel like I need to get an order of operations and like get some type of show going. But since I haven't been able to come up with that yet, I just like, kind of talk to the people who are there, and I'm sewing, maybe playing some music. It's just, I mean, really, it's just what I'm doing here. You know what?
Yeah.
If I wasn't on live, I'll spend more time like on YouTube and watching a podcast or watching news or, watching all kind of little videos. But when I'm on live, that's super boring. I'm not going to be on live and be playing YouTube videos while I sew.
Right.
So it's like, okay, I guess I'll play music. Then it's like, well, whose music do you play? Well, shit, I guess I play my own music. And then,
right.
Yeah, and then it was just like, well, what can I do to make this more fun? I could play music that's not out yet and shit I'm working on. And sometimes I'll go on live and be in the booth and be rapping on live. Like, I don't know. I feel like I need to be on live more just because I feel like I need to engage with people. I don't know. I spent the last 6 months working.
Yeah.
And I felt like I was in a hole. Like I wasn't engaging with people in real life or online so it just felt like it was time for it, I guess.
Yeah. And you said something last week that I thought was really interesting. You're talking about, you could go online and watch these tutorials and learn more about like production and all this stuff, but you're like, I just want to make the music. I don't want to spend all this time. I feel the same way when it comes to tech. It's like, I could spend hours learning that craft better, but it's like, I just want to get to the artistry of it. Does it make sense?
Yeah, no, totally. I mean, it's a problem that I deal with because I'm recording stuff and I don't think it sounds good, but I know I have a quality mic. I know I've got a good mixer. I know I'm using all the right equipment, and I don't like the way it sounds. So that just means that I don't know exactly what I'm doing. I'm not tuning the right dials and shit. And like that knowledge of which dial to tune, like that shit takes some people years. And like, yeah, there's shortcuts and there's cheat codes, and I can go and like watch this video and spend 30 minutes and then, spend an hour watching the video. Then I can spend a couple hours in there recording stuff and tuning it different and coming back out and listening and like really getting it down. And like, I guess when I talk it out, it doesn't sound like that bad an idea, but it's not what I'm in the mood to do. Not what I'm in the mood to do. I want to just like, when I finally do get my computer up and like, it's been like a week. I haven't recorded anything. It's been a week and a half since I've been back home, and I've had the time. And I just yesterday I got my like studio in order, and it's like, that took me hours. And it's like, all right, is it time to finally go record? Like, I don't want to go in there and be doing a tutorial and trying to learn how to record because I'm not a mixer. I'm not an engineer, and I'm not gonna. Yeah. Yes, I do want to know how to mix and master my records. But I also plan on like having someone else do it. So let me spend these hours recording and trying to get this fucking song right. And then I can send it off to get it mixed and mastered, because if I start mixing and mastering all my records, then when am I ever going to finish anything?
Right.
Like if I add that to my plate of all the other shit I'm doing,
right,
and I got to master records too.
Well, how do you know when to switch gears, like from making the visual art to writing the lyrics to actually recording? How do you divide your time? How do you know when it's time to do one of those things?
I mean, no is a strange word to use for that process. Like, I don't know. It's a terrible division of time. I'm not good at it at all. I do the shit when I have to do it.
Yeah.
Most things get done when they have to be done, except for the sewing happens all the time now. The sewing is taken over, um, for better or worse. But like, if I need to work on a song, that happens when that song needs to be done. It's like shit. I need to put this out. Now I'm spending a week and a half recording a song a million times and then sending it to get it mixed and getting it back and blah 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 and working on a little lyric video and it's like all that happens in a week, 2 weeks because it's I need to I'm about to go on tour. I need to finish the song. I need to finish this album. Like whatever it is that needs to get done. When I was working on my last album, I was in music mode. Well, no, I was still sewing all the time, and then I split it up well when I was working on that album. Something about working with Controller Seven, and he was sending shit, not like we were just always sending things back and forth to each other.
Yeah.
So it, some accountability going.
Is that Articulated Textiles the one you're talking
Yeah.
about? Yeah, that's an amazing record. I love that.
Thank you.
And you were on
Yeah.
the road and juggling all these things, and he's just sending you beats, and I mean, how did you, again, did you just have to force yourself to like get to work or?
Well, Articulated Textiles, that came up. I was I was working on music with, well, now that it's, I was working on previous industry stuff with Mike and Riff. So we're working every week. And then I was also working reality TV at that time. So it was like a lot of, and then I would be sewing all the time, like on flights, because previous industries, we really work on music, like usually together. So it's not like writing in your free time. Sometimes some revisions for me and shit. I don't know how everyone else does all their shit, but we usually work together. So that music would get done those times. Like we work on music. Then I'd be working reality TV. So I'm at work. I'd be having to fly to different states. And then there were like a lot of meetings and shit, emails, whatever, but like Zoom calls. But that was like that time. And then Articulated Textiles. And then I was always sewing in my free time. Then me and him just started working on that album because music we went down for COVID from
Right.
work. So then I was like, oh, what am I going to do? I've got a week and a half off now. And I'm like, you know what? I want to work on more music. So then me and Controller Seven just started sending each other music back and forth. So I'd work on it, a lot of it in the air. And like while he'd send me beats and I'd start writing, then I'd do a lot of writing in the air. And if I wasn't writing, I'd be sewing. That was like Articulated Textiles. It was like just like I was just like, he'd send a song and I'd wanna that album was very everything would come. So it's like I hear the music, oh, I'm writing for the next whatever amount of hours. And then I finish the songs, record a demo, send it off to him, then start sewing again. And
Right.
then he'd come back, oh, whether he liked it or not, or if he was gonna change the beat, or he'd send another beat. And it was just like if I had something in my inbox, I'd work on it. And then on flights, I found myself just, yeah, it was either writing songs or sewing on all my flights. And I was flying, every week back and forth. And then I'd be in a hotel, we'd be at work. Then I get off work and I'm in Knoxville, Tennessee. And, there's not much to do. It was still kind of COVID times. So it was just like a lot of writing,
Right.
just writing and sewing.
I want to ask about the sewing because, I live with a textile artist and I watch her work and I don't have the patience for it. Right. It's like, I've tried to learn how to crochet just to be like, I want to see what you do. And I was like, I just couldn't get in the zone. What does it do for you? And when did you first start textile work?
I first started it back in 2018.
Mm-hmm.
It's the first time I ever sewed anything. It was for a little girl, my friend's kid. Like two of my best friends have a kid, and now I love this kid. And it was her birthday. It was her and her brother, like my favorite little kids. And then all the kids in my family. But like outside of the kids in my family, these are my favorite children. And they were like some of the first kids that really got me into kids. Like I was more like, who cares? Like people were so worried about their kids, and I just didn't get it.
Right.
And then like, And then your friends have a kid and you're like, oh, I get it now.
Right.
So this is that kid for me. And it's like her 8th birthday. And like, we're in the store and she's like, I want that. And it's like, make your own mini stuffed animals kid. And I'm like, yeah, that's a great gift for a little 8-year-old kid. You know, yeah, kid, I'll buy you that. So I buy it for her, and then we get back home, and she's like, okay, now make the animals for me. I'm like, whoa, no. You know? Don't you want to do this with your mom and your grandma? And she's just like, no, you have to make them for me, you know? Like,
Yeah.
you make 'em
Smart.
for me.
Smart.
And I'm just like, oh, shit. So it's like her birthday weekend, and I'm visiting for the weekend for her birthday. So it's like, well, you know, what do you say to a kid literally on her birthday? What do you say to her? You know, like, all right. So I had to make all these little stuffed animals from this kit. And I made a few of them. I'm like, there you go. She's like, no, make all of them. Like, what are you talking about? Like, it's like she's flipping the pages. Like, yeah, but what about the penguin?
Right,
you know? What about,
right. The set. I need the
yeah,
set.
like these are great. What about the octopus though? I'm like, oh God. So I just had to spend the whole weekend making all these sets. And then it's like, well, what about the accessories? You know, there's a top hat. And I'm like, what? So I had to make all the accessories. And they didn't have an accessory for every animal.
Right.
Essentially. But now they need something. And I'm like, are you serious? But like, it's all good natured the whole time, but it's just like, it's never ending. And so that was really the key point when I had to make my own shit.
Wow.
Cause like, and I'm like, oh, well, this bat needs a cape. So now I can stand up. So I sew a little cape, and then this one can use a crown. And like, I made my own shit, and I didn't even really think about it. It was just like some shit I did. And then I left that weekend, and I went to Barnes and Nobles and I bought myself that fucking kit, like to sew your mini animals stuff. I was like,
oh, amazing.
Yeah, I was like, you know what? I actually kind of like that. So like I went, I bought my own.
Right.
But then I never really used it, because I'm a grown man. And like I'm busy. I have work and shit. And like I really didn't use it. I bought it, I opened it. Maybe I didn't even make anything for a while. I just had it. And then I was like selling t-shirts, and I was like, oh, first person buys some t-shirts, I'll make you a stuffed animal. I'm like, oh yeah, I got this kit. So I made a few, and people jumped on it, but I didn't even, like, I just made them out of the kit. Like I looked at the kit, made those animals from the kit, gave them away, made a few little spare ones here and there. Like this was maybe a month after I made them for the kit.
Right.
Then I made maybe 10 more, gave them all away. So gave them to fans, gave them to my sister, whatever. Then I was like, all right, cool. Then like never touched the thing again until lockdown. Like in the middle of lockdown, I'm sitting around, well, yeah, maybe a few other times I made some shit, but like, once or twice here and there. And then during lockdown, I pull it out and I start every day. It just became this thing that I did every single day. And then I made some of the pieces I got over here. I still got the most important ones. When it like kind of turned from making the animals in the kit to making my own stuff. So like this one was one of the first ones I made. I was tripping on acid actually this day. It was crazy.
That's awesome.
And I was like, she couldn't stand up because like I didn't stuff her, and like I was tripping, so I just like sewed her up. And I was like, oh no, I forgot to like stuff her. Like she can't even stand.
Right.
So I didn't want to unsew her though, because like she was so cool.
Yeah, totally.
So I was like, well, I don't want to cut this string. And like there's nothing wrong with this. This is the conversation I'm having with myself. There's nothing wrong with her. It's not her fault. She can't stand. Like that's the way I made her.
Totally.
So then,
so
then I took these extra pieces and I like sewed them to her, and they kind of like gave her like kind of kickstand powers. And then I told myself as I'm tripping, like, oh, these pieces are like her ancestors, and they make her stronger and they make her more beautiful. And this is the real conversation I had with myself when I was tripping. And I was like, their ancestors make them stronger. And then like the next day, as I was still tripping, I made this octopus, and this isn't from the kit, just an octopus, but like made from all these different pieces from their ancestors. And then that kind of unlocked my brain to like, yo, you can make whatever you want. And I just started making all kinds of shit and little skeletons and buildings. And eventually it turned into this craziness I do now where I coat things.
Yeah.
Like in our latest music video.
Oh yeah, I want to talk about pliers. But before we get there, I just want to ask about, I mean, I think the great thing that I've seen from craft, if there was a period where craft was not considered fine art, even though there were tapestries hanging in museums for thousands of years. But it is funny to see just how freeing it is, like living with someone who does textile work. but also how some of the choices she makes some traditional people in the field lose their mind. Like, she doesn't sew her ends in, and people go like, I can't deal with looking at the stuff dripping off your thing. But the freedom of it is, like you said, you're like, oh, I just, this thing, I forgot to stuff it, and now it exists in a realm, and then you start seeing things differently. And it seems like just such a freeing medium to work in. Do you go on autopilot these days when you make the work, or do you have to concentrate hard? Where are you at with it?
I mean, I have to concentrate on it because the string gets very caught up and gets knotted. Like if I don't look at it, it gets knotted up. You know, you can't do more than one or two loops. Unless, you know, it maybe there's some technique that I'm unschooled and shit. Maybe I'm not twisting the needle the right way or something. I don't know. But the shit gets knotted up unless, you know, you loop it around the finger and go through. So there's a certain amount of autopilot where I'm just doing it. But then also what I do is so intricate, and like it's like puzzle pieces and like fitting little pieces together. So I
Yeah.
kind of have to look at it. So even if I'm watching or listening to something else, like I have to look at every stitch, and like, you know, I can watch something, but I have to look and make sure I got the string straight before I do this. Because once I do this, then I cause a knot
Right.
and I fuck it all up. Then I'm sitting there. So
Yes.
autopilot in is a hard thing to say. It's very meticulous.
Yeah, definitely. I'll put a link to your art in the show notes as well. And yeah, your new video for Previous Industries, not only was I amazed by just the amount of sewing that you had done over, you know, guns and coffee mugs and things like that. So it's a shot by shot recreation of the Show Me the Way to Go Home sequence in Jaws. Where
Yeah.
did that come from? Had you always wanted to, did that stick in your mind like someday I want to do that?
I love Jaws as a movie. I've seen it multiple times. I've watched videos about it. So it's like, you know, it's not like, but it would never come up in my list of favorites. If someone was,
Right.
I hate the favorites also. When people are like, what's your favorite? I'm like, oh, it sent me, it's like, I get such a block. Like that question locks me up.
Oh, me too. As a video store owner, people would be like, what's your favorite movie? What's your favorite comedy? I'd be like,
Yeah.
I'm surrounded by 32,000 films I've picked out. I can't do it.
Right.
I can't do
And,
it.
and they're like, name five. And I'm like, that doesn't make it any better. It's so,
Exactly.
and it's like this weird thing that I'm glad that it happens to someone else. Cause like I get to this mode where they're like, just name a movie that you like. And I'm like, I can't. You've locked me up. I can't even do it now. Like,
Right.
what genre? You have to give me guidelines. I can't do this.
Yeah, they expect a secret sign.
Yeah. So Jaws probably wouldn't have popped up on the list for me or anything. It's just like I'm a movie I've always liked. I like a lot of movies. But when it came time for that video, it was just I kept listening to the song and I was thinking about us as a group, and you know, we're three guys, and I don't know. It was just like something I was like, man, this song reminds me of that scene from Jaws, like just the three of them on a boat. And when I said that in my mind, I wasn't sure if I was talking about the Show Me the Way to Go Home, or when they're comparing the scars, or a time when the shark pops out of the water. Like it wasn't even, well, it was at night, but it's in my mind. I said to myself, this reminds me of that scene where it's the three of them on the boat at night.
Yeah.
And then I'm listening to the song and I'm thinking about that. And I go to YouTube and I just type in Jaws, you know, Show Me the Way to Go Home, or Jaws. And I look at the scenes and I see Show Me the Way to Go Home. I'm like, okay. And I press play and I just watch the scene. You know, I pause the music and I watch the scene. And I like enjoy the scene. Like, oh yeah, I do really like this scene. What a good scene. And it's just like this 3-minute clip of the scene. I watch it like once or twice and I'm like, huh. And I look at the YouTube timeline, it's like 3:01 or 3:23, whatever. And I'm like, huh. I look at the timeline of the song, it's like the same amount of time. And I'm like, wait a minute.
Right.
So then, you know, I'm an editor, so I just pull up Final Cut and I just download the video. I lay the song on the timeline and I laid the video, that scene, just laid it over the song. And I'm sitting there watching. And I'm like, this is really fucking cool. And then like the second verse starts and what's his name? Richard Dreyfuss's character starts pounding the table, like when the second verse starts, and I'm like, wait a minute, that's really fucking dope.
Yes.
Then I keep watching, and then, you know, the chief, he like starts putting out the fire right when my verse starts, and there's like a reveal of his face, like, and that's the first line of my verse. And I'm like, wait a minute.
Yeah, it's magic.
Yeah, and I go back and I watch it again, and I watch it like 3 or 4 times. And I'm like, this is perfect. And like I didn't do anything. Like
Right.
all I did was lay these on top of each other. And I'm like, this is perfect. And then like a week later, I go meet up with Mike and Riff. I'm just like, hey, so when we weren't even like in video talks. Like this wasn't something we were considering. I was just like, oh, by the way, I found the perfect video for Pliers. And we all knew we liked that song. It was like a song we had made and we liked it. And they're like, what do you mean? And I'm just like, look at this. And I just press play. And it was the most unanimous, like, yes, that's perfect. And I was just like, how about if we did that on green screen? And I was like, I was thinking stop motion animation. And I was thinking felt.
Yeah.
I wanted to recreate, like, make the scene with felt, everything. And it would have been us in a felt world I created. I thought about, like, that was my initial thought. And I thought about it and I was like, okay. And I told them that and they were like, that sounds cool. And then I was like, and like, as we were having that conversation, I was like, or maybe I can ask a Crank Bunny who did my video for my song. And they both lit up like, yeah, because she had already done a video mixing her animation with my felt. And I was like, or I get her to animate it and I just do some felt art. And they were like, yeah, that sounds like that's the perfect mix. Like it's us, animated world, and the objects that we touch are these crazy felted things.
When there's tributes done, a lot of people do it very lazily. This was so fanatical in terms of even how people gesture in the video. It's so cool how you captured that. So how did you end up directing those little moments?
I had to keep yelling at Mike to get him to do it right. No, I'm joking. Like Mike was, I mean, like that dude's acting chops. I was like, we didn't have a whole bunch of rehearsal days and all that. Like,
Right.
they had the footage. We all knew what the mission was. So, we started rolling. Like, yeah, I did direct that. It was my idea. I was looking at the camera and making sure everything was framed up right. But when it comes to telling Mike what to do with the acting, that his verse, he did all that. Some of the looking up and stuff like that while he was polishing the gun, that was a little bit more in my directing where I'm like, all right, look, do it this way. No, try it again, do it.
Right.
But that shit, when he did like the gestures and he wiped his mouth and like I asked him to do it, but I didn't coach him. I didn't coach him not 1 second for that. Mike, wow.
Yeah.
He killed it. He killed it.
Yeah, the shot a video that I saw recently of both the Jaws film and the Players video together. Yeah. It was just so fanatical and so made with love. And it was incredible. So congratulations. I just was psyched.
They both, when I first pitched it, they both were like, well, it doesn't necessarily have to be shot for shot. I was like, no, because so many shots where like you don't see, especially during my verse, you don't see me rap a lot.
Right. Yeah, there's like the boats getting, pounded on and people are fine, the fire starting
and like even the DP Ryan, who's great and we worked with before, he was just like, are you sure we don't want to just get the whole song? Like we could have got the whole song at the table and done a throwaway video or a vertical video, like, and we should have. In hindsight, it's like, yeah, maybe we should have, because I could have used that for other assets. But it was like, should we get all of us sitting here and just rap the whole song? No, that's not what this video calls for. It is a shot for shot. I wanted to see that shot for shot remake and wanted it to match up, and it matched up so well. Like I love it.
Yeah.
I can watch it.
Yeah, congrats, it's killer. Well, you had two films that you were deciding between. Little Shop of Horrors and The Blues Brothers. Speaking of having you have to pick something out of, the struggle of trying to find something to talk about.
It was tough.
So between those two, what made you pick The Blues Brothers as the film you wanted to talk about today?
Because the whole Chicago-ness of it and all the great like cameos, like just I like Little Shop of Horrors a lot, but when I think of the two, it's like, oh, I like Blues Brothers a lot more.
So when you were growing up and you saw this film, did it feel like a Chicago film to you, where you're like, oh shit, I know everything in this?
100%. The first time I saw Blues Brothers, I mean, I didn't know about like the Joliet State Prison at all, which is where it starts. So
Right.
like first time I watched, I didn't know what I was getting into either. But like the opening shots is like those weird lights and like gas lights and the blackness like down around Indiana. So I knew about that. I was just like, oh wait, I think I know what that is. I wasn't 100% sure.
Right.
Then they start in Joliet, whatever. But then once they get to Chicago, it's like they went to Maxwell Street. I'm like, I've been to Maxwell Street. They're driving through the city, just places I've been. They go to Wrigley Field. It was just, yeah, a list of places that I'd been before and I'd seen before. And I'm like, wait, these are in a movie now? And then all these famous people are in Aretha Franklin is in Chicago? Because I was a kid. I don't remember the first time I saw it. I don't remember how old I was exactly, but it was still young enough where these were just people on TV. I didn't know they had ever been to Chicago. Like,
Right.
I didn't know that Franklin had ever been to Chicago until I become much smarter,
Yeah, it's kind of amazing. Also, I saw this when it came out in 1980, perfect age, 12. And that year, such a smashing year for, R-rated comedy, that kind of stuff. Like you had Cheech and Chong's next movie, Caddyshack, Stir Crazy, Airplane, 9 to 5, Private Benjamin. It was just like, if you were a kid that had like parents who just would drop you off somewhere to like go spend the weekend in a movie theater, where they weren't checking IDs, it was perfect, right?
Which I did not.
Yes.
But
And then seeing it on TV, it was like, this was on cable all the time.
well, I didn't see it till like it was on like channel 50. Like we never had cable growing up.
Yeah. Yeah.
So the first time I saw it was when it finally reached like regular TV with commercials and all that.
Seeing like these skits on Saturday Night Live where they're, just kind of goofing around and doing blues songs together with the Saturday Night Live band into a scripted film. It's funny when this film comes up, there's a lot of people who are over this film. Like they're like, oh yeah, Blues Brothers. And I'm like, have you watched it recently? It is so tightly done. It's got car chases, which I love. Some of the greatest car chases ever.
Yeah, one of the biggest ever.
Yeah, it's got musical numbers, which John Landis was pissed about because he's like, I made a musical and no one will call it a musical. He's like, this thing is full of musical numbers. And people are like, it's a comedy. He's like, no, it's a musical. That's funny. Right. And I think from this thin idea that they had of their love of blues music to make something that just has such a sophisticated beginning, middle, and end, I think it's a great film.
The studio wanted to go disco.
Yeah.
The studio was scared of blues. Didn't think it'd be successful.
Yeah, they wanted John Landis to change all of the performers because none of them had hits. And he stuck to his guns. And again, for a lot of people, kids my age, I'd never seen James Brown perform right, and I it's just like, it was eye-opening. Or Johnny Lee Hooker. Are you kidding?
Yeah. John Lee Hooker performing at Maxwell Street it's such a great thing that got caught on, a real film camera. Like if it wasn't for that movie, what would be the best footage we would have of John Lee Hooker playing at Maxwell Street? That's so amazing.
Yeah.
Because it's such a real thing, and it's in this movie and it's like, no, like, I don't know. It's amazing. It's like that little piece is almost a documentary. Just that. Because then they start like doing flips and dancing in the air and Ray Charles is shooting a gun. It's just great. Yeah. It's so great.
It's awesome. Yeah. And it was funny. I was looking online because I rewatching it to talk to you. There was an extended version I saw recently and I was like, oh, I'll check it out. It's like, about 20 minutes longer. And I went online and I found this site called movie-censorship.com where they went through the entire film and they would say how long a scene would, even if like the opening Universal sign, they're like, it's 0.3 seconds longer and the extended one than this. But they broke down like the Johnny Lee Hooker thing here. And they're like, it's 4.4 seconds longer for a close-up of Johnny Lee Hooker looking at the Blues Brothers. There's a 14.1 seconds longer at the end where they have the altercation. And when I saw the film originally, there was Like the Blues Brothers come out of Aretha Franklin's restaurant, and Johnny Lee Hooker is in a fight with one of his musicians, and it was never explained. But in the extended version, basically, Johnny Lee Hooker says, "Hey, thank you. I wrote this song, boom, boom." And then someone in his band is like, "No, you didn't." And he's like, "I wrote this song." He's like, "No, you didn't." And then they get in a fight while the Blues Brothers go in. And that was always so confusing to me watching the film originally. I was like, what happened while they were inside the store that made this band start fighting? But this website will break it down to the like microsecond. It's so fanatical. It was so funny to look at. People will.
I've never seen that scene. That's amazing.
The Cab Calloway's sequence is longer, much longer in the extended segment, which I also loved. You know, as a kid, there were certain things I really stood out. I love the opening shot where they're backlit coming out of prison and they're meeting, and it's just like, bah. And also I loved the Cab Calloway choice of them magically just appearing and these amazing, you know, tuxes and this beautiful Art Deco thing. And then they do this choice where at the end they're applauding and he's thanking the band. And then it cuts to him in his street clothes with the sunglasses. Like it's all fantasy. It like just gets really realized in a really beautiful moment.
I love it. That's such a beautiful scene when the outfits change and he does Minnie the Moocher. Because like you got Cab Calloway and he's going to do Minnie the Moocher in front of all these people. We're not doing it in the Blues Brothers outfits.
No, not at all.
So let's let him be Cab Calloway, but he's been hip this whole time. But you've got Cab Calloway. I mean, you got this full house. It's amazing because you know those people were singing along. It's amazing. What was that scene? All those people were there.
Yeah,
I mean they were, but it's like that's crazy.
I know. I always think about how hard it must be to direct a live show that's staged, where we're like, we're gonna set up again, we're gonna shoot it, get as excited as you were again, like lose your mind again out there. Okay, cut. Right, we're gonna set again, and yeah, it's a seamless experience. Like you feel them winning over the audience. Yeah, it's beautiful.
Yeah.
So when you first saw this, did you know like who like John Candy was and like all the extra cameos, Carrie Fisher and people like that?
Yeah, you know, I had seen movies with these people before, so by the time I saw Blues Brothers, I'd already seen Star Wars, I'd already seen Summer Rental, and
right.
You know, like all the VHS classics, VHS and Betamax. Like
absolutely,
we had, my uncle was really into that shit, and we had VHS, we had Betamax, we had all these, you know, terrible old movies. We didn't have cable, so I wasn't seeing the new cool movies. I was seeing these, you know, and then my uncle, like he was like a flea market type of guy, so he'd, you know, come up with a box of tapes. So, you know, then bachelor parties in there with Tom Hanks, you know, things that was inappropriate, you know.
Oh
like,
yeah,
it's all shit. Like you get a box full of, what is that, Night Shift movie where like somebody like running running a prostitution ring out of a morgue.
Oh my God. Yeah, it was the era of inappropriate things that were aimed at us kids.
Right.
You know, it was like, it's got your favorite comedians in it, and they're in something called Bachelor Party. You're like, yes, I want to see this. And then I also remember so many of those films. Maybe I don't know, maybe you feel differently. Some of them were just so disappointing. Like you just knew. I remember going to see Dr. Detroit, which also has James Brown in it, and just being like, oh, I don't think this is very good. I think I could just feel it in my bones as a kid. Like it wasn't that funny, but like you're like, but it's Dan Aykroyd and it's got Devo in it. It's all the pieces are there.
Yeah, but unfortunately, I didn't see Blues Brothers that way. I just didn't see Blues Brothers. I like caught it on TV one day and didn't know what I was in for, and you know, just was like fixed to the TV for 2 hours, which, you know, it didn't. I mean, I was in front of the TV a lot, like, you know, but that was one of those times. There were a few movies where it was like, whoa, locked in, and like, oh, what is this? Got to see that again.
Did you have trouble finding it again after you first saw it?
No. I think after that, then it was able to like go and rent it from Blockbuster or whatever. And then it was like, wait, this is great, you know?
Yeah.
I love this.
There's some factual things I didn't know, like that most of the dancers in the film, except for the church scene, were amateurs. They
Really?
wanted people to not look super sophisticated, like kind of like they were just dancing on the street suddenly from Ray
Yeah.
Charles playing inside his music store. And
Right.
watching it again with that, you can kind of see like they put the kind of better people up front and the people in the back are kind
Mhm.
of sloppy.
Yeah.
But I guess it was also freezing cold. It was supposed to be a summer scene, and it was like, 15 degrees, and they're in t-shirts, having to act like it's a summer show.
Oh, I didn't know that.
It was choreographed by Carlton Johnson, who did The Wiz and did stuff for the Carol Burnett Show and Sammy Davis Jr. and did stuff for Diana Ross and the Supremes. Was like a ballet trained dancer. But yeah, I like that he was like, for this choice, really wanted to zoom in on the amateur aspect of it. And I think that's kind of the charm of the film is nothing feels professional in it.
Mhm.
Even the car stuff. I like that they leave in things that where it's kind of sloppy and they're like kind of struggling to get out of a mall window, like spinning their
Mhm.
wheels, and it's not a clean film.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, no, I know what you mean. Yeah, I like all those little tiny details. That car chase scene, because you could tell that it was real. It was
Yes.
like, wait, that they're really in a mall, driving through a mall, because they did exactly what you're saying. They show the car struggling to get out, and like, I mean, the people, that shit was thrilling me as a kid. I remember that scene just blowing my mind. Like, how could this be happening? I thought it was real. I could have swore it was real. Like the people running, like that movie. It took the scenes of like the car falling through the pavement and stuff like that for me to be like, okay, it's all a joke. But
Yes.
like when I was watching that mall scene, and that's early in the movie, I'm just like, what is going on? It blew my mind. I couldn't believe what I was watching.
Yeah, they do such a great job with the doubles in it, and then them actually driving through and being like, "Oh, look, everything's in this mall," and just being
Yeah.
so nonchalant that it is really seamless. Watching it recently, I just was like, this is some of the best car stuff, and it never comes up in the conversation when people talk about the greatest car scenes, like the Seven Ups or things like that. I'm like, this is in it, like I feel like these scenes, especially for a comedy film.
It was the most cars ever destroyed for one scene.
Yeah, that scene where all the police cars are just piling up in Chicago and they just can't
Yeah.
stop and they're slamming. It was exciting. Again, watching it again recently, I'd kind of pushed down that side of it, and I was like, yeah, not only is it this incredible musical, but it's this incredible action film and a comedy, and it knows when to leave. It knows when enough is enough.
The it's just such a good comedy. It was Dan Aykroyd's first script,
Yes.
and it was like super long. And it is super long.
It's 2.5 hours.
Yeah.
But what a great effort, first script. Yeah, I heard that he was like really into all the detail. Like, I want to talk about the trees and I want to talk about the light and the signs, the neon signs that the cars are passing. Cause he's just writing about Chicago, right? And
Right.
he's like, I know exactly what I want to see. And it was so big that he put it in a Yellow Pages cover as a joke when he submitted it. He's like, here you go. It's massive. And then John Landis spent all his time just, chopping it up.
Right.
If you could put yourself into the film,
Uh-huh.
what could you imagine yourself being? Would you want to be a performer? Would you want to be like in the mall scene? Would you want it to be a new scene?
If I was gonna be in that movie, I'd want to just be in the crowd for the performance scene. I mean, on stage, but I can't play any of those instruments. Like that's another level of fantasy. I'd be Donald Duck Dunn.
Oh
you
my
know?
God.
Uh, um, if if I could just do the time travel part, I guess I'd work on the movie because I work in like I'd be a producer. I'd be working in the camera department
Right.
on the film. No, to answer your question, I'd be in the crowd. I'd watch that fucking performance.
Yeah.
You know, watch watch the Blues Brothers, watch Calloway. That's worth the price of admission right there.
Yeah. I mean, my introduction to, Donald Duck Dunn and Steve Cropper, legends, Booker T and the MGs and the Stax House Band. Didn't know who they were because at this point they were kind of older guys, right? But just the fact that they put together, people who'd played with Isaac Hayes, Willie Hall played on Shaft. It's just kind of awesome. I guess Paul Schaefer picked everyone, but couldn't contractually get out to be in the film, which I think would have been kind of an amazing, different film if Paul Schaefer was delivering some of the lines about not getting paid and stuff. Do you have a favorite line in the film? I have a couple.
I mean, we're on a mission from God is just like an iconic thing.
Yeah.
To say and to think, don't you blaspheme in this house?
Yeah.
I love that shit. I mean, I love that whole scene. Do you see the light? I see the light. It's just those.
Yes.
Like, I see the light.
And he just starts doing those flips. I remember as a kid being like not knowing what stunt doubles were yet, right? And being like,
exactly.
Yeah, there's so many good things. And then, all the stuff with the good old boys and the Illinois Nazis, like, oh, I hate Illinois Nazis. It's just like, it just goes on and on and on in terms of iconic scenes. Like, I'd never seen a bar with chicken wire, but like that scene basically, like, it's become a total trope in terms of bad show. You're going to be playing behind chicken wire and people are going to be throwing beer bottles at you.
Yeah, which I'd love to play behind chicken wire one day. We played in a place that, I mean, it was uncomfortable. I forget, it was out in California, like out in northeastern California somewhere. I forget what city it was. But we walked into that place and it just looked mad uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Like there was just nothing but cowboys, and I feel like there might have been a Confederate flag hanging up there somewhere. It was just mad uncomfortable. And then, all that shit just got covered up and the good old boys left and all the college kids came and it was a rap show.
Wow.
It was setting up. It just felt uncomfortable.
Yeah.
And you're just like, damn, we're rapping here tonight?
Like, you're like, we better settle up now.
Yeah. That's what it felt like. And it all turned out fine, but it felt like we were behind chicken wire. It felt like we were going to be playing behind chicken wire when we set up. Like when we got there to do sound check and shit, it was like, whoa, wait a minute.
Yeah.
Like, where is the chicken wire? Because I'll feel safer when you put up the chicken wire, because this shit is a little too close for comfort. And then, yeah, they all cleared out. Different bar staff came. All the college kids came. And then we rapped.
Have you ever had a show like with the Cab Calloway or the Blues Brothers playing, after Cab Calloway, where it's like, it's just slow to get going. And then by the end, people have lost their minds. Like you've won them over.
Yeah, that's happened, especially overseas. That has happened for me in London, twice in London, where they weren't sure what they were getting into. But by the end of the night, I've had really good nights in London, personally. And then with Mike, usually they kind of knew what they were getting into. But so there have been times with Mike that we've been places we've never been. And it might start kind of slow. And then by the end of the night, these people are really with us.
Right.
Like that's kind of usually the experience. Unless it's a place that is a crowd full of people who's familiar with us. Like, usually it takes a song, two, and then they get into it.
It seems like there's a bit of a judgment on actors being musicians. Like musicians, I feel like transition to being actors in a way that is applauded. Like people are like, oh, wow, this musician is, a great actor. You got people in the new Scorsese film, right, that are,
right.
Musicians. But going to be an actor to musician is kind of frowned upon. I just think it's kind of a weird standard.
Yeah, I agree because I see why. Because if you're a very good actor, then it's like, wait, are you just acting like a musician now? Mm-hmm. And it's a little unfair because it doesn't matter if you're creative and you want to express yourself through the arts, if I was to somehow land one of these amazing art shows that I want to get, like I
Mhm.
walk into one of these art galleries and they're like, yeah, we'll give you an art show.
Right.
And then I become the new art darling of fucking LA, and I've got to exhibit at MoMA in 4 years from now. And it's like, what this guy, it's amazing, you know? And then like if that would have happened, and then they're like, this rapper turned artist. But if the art would have happened, or if that little scenario I pitched was to happen, then I'm an artist. The world meets me as an artist. Like I put out my rap records,
Right.
but I'm an artist. So then if I try to put out an album, they'd be like, oh, that guy who sews, he wants to rap now? And it's like, well, I've been rapping since I was 18, you know? And like, if, like, I've tried to get cast out, I've tried to be in the writer's room. I've tried stand up. So am I a failed stand up? Am I a failed writer? Am I a failed singer? I used to be in the choir when I was a kid. Am I a
Right.
failed singer? If I wanted to sing a song that, oh, this rapper now he wants to, like, why am I a rap? Like, I have a song where I talk about that, but there's something about it. Like if I was to like get drunk and kill someone, oh, I'd be a rapper for sure. Rapper gets drunk, but like, it's weird when the standard gets applied. Like, will I get to be an artist if one of these galleries will take me up on my offer to, do a show? I've done one show and it was great. I love it. But, will I get to be an artist? I don't know. Will they call me a rapper? Which one comes first? So then it's like, oh, he's an actor. Now he wants to rap. You don't know what he was doing first.
Right.
Like, maybe he was always a rapper and then he got a chance to act. And this is certainly not about anyone that's currently in the news. This is just a metaphorical conversation.
Yes.
But like, if you were always a rapper and then you get a chance to act, like, are you now not a rapper anymore? Like, it's so weird. And then if you do the Will Smith thing and decide to, no, I'm going to act now. Like, this shit is great money and I'm good at acting. Like, you then not allowed to rap anymore? That's pretty weird. Like, I've been rapping since I was a kid.
Right.
I have to stop rapping now. It's so strange that people want to police creativity in a way like that. It's really strange and it's a weird thing to want to do. Like, why? Why do you want to police other people's creativity? But all that to say, it is kind of weird though, because then when you're an actor, it's like, wait, but are you just acting like a musician now?
No, I remember we had a show booked, and then we had it it got bumped because Kiefer Sutherland was coming in, right, to do a show. And we're like, Kiefer Sutherland is a musician? And then it sold out. I was like, yeah, I guess people want to see Kiefer Sutherland either as, oh, I saw Kiefer Sutherland, I got to see him. I don't know how interested they are in him as a musician. But, it was like, well, he sold it out. I guess they were right. We'll play the next time.
I mean, I guess it's not. I guess there has to be a way to look at. You have to be able to see the other side because if like I've been rapping all this time. If I was to become the new art darling, and then all of a sudden my next album gets a cover feature in the LA Times, then other rappers would be like, I could see them being like, what the hell? Like,
Yeah.
like I've been rapping. I could see another rapper's argument being, I've been rapping better than Dave for years, and I've been getting recognition for being a better rapper than Dave for years. But now because you like Dave's art, his rap gets featured way above mine. That's bullshit. Yeah, and that would be kind of fucked up. I can see that.
Yeah.
Like that's not great. But then what am I supposed to do? Not so?
Exactly.
Like, I like so.
Yeah, and I think one of the criticisms of the film is people are like, it's John Belushi and Dan Aykroyd doing blues music.
Yeah.
And, they're like, yeah, why are they doing this? And it's like, because they fucking love it.
Yeah, they've got an appreciation for it, and they're comedians, so they made a joke out of it. But it was a funny joke, and the joke's not on the blues. Like,
no, it's on them.
Yeah, so it's like, okay, cool. Like, why are they making fun of the blues? Yeah, they made a funny blues act because they're comedians and they love the blues. And then they feature all these great artists.
Yes.
In the movie, and they feature all the greatest artists. It's like, yeah, no, this is really cool.
Yeah, it's like an excuse for them. They're like the weakest link, right? And they know it.
Right.
They're not up there being like, we're the stars, like we are amazing musicians. You never get that vibe from them. They're playing these characters that are like mythical, right?
Yeah.
And they're putting the band back together. And then the magic in that and the myth in that is like the band they put together is insane, right? It's
Yes.
the greatest people who know and live that music and have done it for decades. And then
Right.
so I think the appreciation is there, but it is funny. You know, they put out an album and it definitely had a novelty vibe to it, but
Hmm.
they surrounded themselves with people that they were in love with. And you can feel that in this film. They are in love with everyone in this movie. And they must have been so excited just to even be around them.
Yeah, and it really worked. It really came off great. Like I mean, I wish I don't even know what a hip hop version of this movie could be. Like it would have to be a whole different movie. I would never want to remake it, but like to be able to do this, like idea of like having the greats, just having
Yes.
people be in a real fun movie that they could be in there and rap and do their thing, and that's just part of the movie, and it just keeps on going. It'd be great. I don't know. This is not going to become my life mission. I don't have the time for this.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, just another thing to put on the pile.
Did you know that the that the actual Pope visited the set of the movie? The Pope was in town and visit the set of the movie and bless the movie.
What?
They were on a mission from God.
That is incredible. I didn't even know popes had time to do that. They're just like, oh, yeah.
Me neither. When I heard about that, I'm like, that can't be true. And I did minimal research, but I was like, I can't say this on the internet unless I know this is true. And as far as knowing things that you read on the internet are true.
Oh, I'll take it. Even if it's not true, I'm going to now from on be like, this is one of the few films that was blessed by the Pope. I mean, I
Yeah.
guess better this than Bachelor Party. It could have been kind of weird.
And that they actually did drop a car from a helicopter.
Yeah, that
Like,
scene is incredible. I mean, watching this film, I saw this film so much as a kid, right? And I would concentrated on different things when I saw it as a kid. But watching
mhm.
it recently, just the practical effects in it, just how tight it is in terms of the writing and like the scene with the sister and the way John Belushi falls down the stairs and the desk work and stuff like
Going
that.
upstairs in the desk is amazing.
Yeah, exactly. And it's like these little things that I remember being so funny just because they were funny as a kid, but watching it as an adult and seeing like how physical it was for them to do that and just the choices in it.
That whole scene, the angles they used with the penguin,
Yes.
like imposing, intimidating she was, like the looking up the stairs, the way she flew back and the door closed on its own.
And even them looking at the Christ statue up at the top, they're at the bottom of the stairs. It's like this is like a horror movie all of a sudden.
Yeah,
You're
yeah,
like, I have no idea what's going to happen the first time you saw it.
yeah. It's great. And Red Man and Meth Man remade that. Like, I like the whole movie remake for music videos. I've always been a fan of that. I don't want to make music videos where I'm rapping at the camera. And like this video, we didn't rap at the camera. Like that was an important part of it. Was we're rapping the words, but we're looking at, like we never rap at the camera, and it was like we're only rapping when. That's why I didn't want to shoot at the table, and it was like, hey, should we just get all you guys rapping out? Because I was like, what are we going to do when we run out of the actions? And we're going to start just rapping at the camera, and I don't want to do that. Like,
When I was first watching Pliers, at first I didn't know it was a tribute, right? And I just thought it had a really cool look. It just felt different. It had a certain kind of air to it that I was trying to figure out. And then I was like, oh shit, this is Jaws. I was like blown away. And then when the weapons start coming out with all the fabric on them, and I just like, oh God, and the cartoon. Yeah, it's brilliant.
yeah, I was really happy to not be rapping at the camera. That was like,
Yeah.
because other times people remake movie scenes for music videos, but then it's like a spoof kind of like in costume, same set, but now we're gonna rap at the camera. And I was like, no, I don't want to do that. Very specifically, do not want to do that.
That's a true film lover who struggles to give film picks to people. I get it.
Yeah.
I saw this film so many times as a kid, right?
Yeah.
So it's kind of hard to know what to talk about because it gets blurred.
Well, yeah, all the Carrie Fisher stuff is kind of out of left, like the blowing up, like the building blowing up and the rocket launcher. Like she's out of control in that movie. The machine gun. It doesn't make sense that she never gets caught. But
Right. The scene where they're in his apartment with the
yeah,
trains going by is brilliant.
yeah.
You know, just like because I've stayed the night in many of those apartments.
You know what other scene I love is when Jake orders the chicken, when Jake and Elwood ordered the chicken, and she goes back in the kitchen and she's like, Sammy, he's like, Jake, Elwood, the Blues Brothers, like that they know him from their order, like that ridiculous ass order. I love that. I love when they jump in the line with what, like when the three women sitting at the counter step become Aretha Franklin's backup singers. I love that shit. Like I remember watching that and being like, "That's brilliant." Like I love as a kid who doesn't understand what's happening, I understood like that's great. That was such a great choice. I love this. And then when they join in and dance, it's just like the greatest shit ever. And he's up on the guitar playing the fucking up on the counter playing the guitar. It's just like what a great movie. It's beautiful.
Yeah, and it was I again as a kid I hadn't seen a lot of musicals, right? I didn't know that people broke into dance and song and stuff like that. So for me, it might have been one of the first or the first musical I ever saw, where it broke the the wall in terms of like, okay, they just break into song and then when it stops and she says think, then it's like back
Yeah.
to what's going to happen. It's going to be the story.
Now I had seen a lot of musicals, but never one like that. Never like a comedy and cursing and action and that's what blew my mind. And Ray Charles and Aretha Franklin, that blew my mind. But I had seen musicals. I mean, I was very familiar with The Sound of Music and Mary Poppins and
Right.
Seven Brides for Seven Brothers and Fiddler on the Roof and all these movies that like would come on Channel 11. No, WTTW, the PBS stations, like all that shit. Like we were very, very familiar as children, like because we didn't have the cable. We would only have the one TV in the house. My dad was pretty old and he was pretty old fashioned. And when it came down to a Saturday night and the family's watching TV, like that shit was not going to be any action movie or no Beverly Hills Cop. Like
Right.
that's not up Dad's alley. That's like Fiddler on the Roof.
Right.
And he's like, yes, I'm very pleased. Like, so I was very familiar with like musicals and shit like that.
This film is also a road trip movie, which is classic. It's like it's got it all. It's so weird.
Yeah.
Musical, road trip, comedy, action sequences, horror movie, mystery, heartbreak.
The fantasy aspect, I love it.
Well, at the end of every interview, I ask the same question, but I tailor it depending on what we're talking about. So on a scale from 1 to 10, with 1 being the lowest and 10 being the highest, how many missions from God do you give this film? On a scale from 1 mission from God to 10 missions from God.
This is 10 missions from God. It's 10 missions from God. Like this movie has it all. There's nothing wrong with it, there's nothing wrong with the movie. It's great, it's funny, it's got good music, it's got classic artists that like you get to see in a different light. And yeah, it's dare I say perfect. There's very little wrong with this movie, I'm sure somebody can pick something and maybe if they made their case then I'd have to like think about it, but from where I sit, ain't nothing wrong with it.
Yeah, for a film that was blessed by the Pope and making a 2.5-hour comedy that flies by. I mean, the film does not feel that long. It's kind of incredible when you think about it.
Yeah, it zooms right along. It just keeps on moving. Nazis jump into a river. They fall.
Like most comedies would have 2 of these scenes in it, right? That would be iconic. But this film has scene after scene after scene that are legendary.
Yeah, it's wonderful.
Yeah.
The Good Old Boys, all of it. I love it. 10 out of 10.
That's what I have written down here too. I've written down 10 missions from God as the correct answer. Video Dave, thank you so much for taking the time today. I really appreciate talking to you.
Thank you. No problem. I appreciate it. Yeah. People just gotta listen to previous industries. It's a good album. Listen to service merchandise from previous industries. Listen to Articulated Textiles from Video Dave. Those are the biggest pieces of advice I can give you right now.
I'll put all this in the show notes, everybody. And again, follow Video Dave on Instagram. And when you see that he's going live, go live. It is a great time. Guaranteed.
Thanks, man.
Thank you for listening to Revolutions Per Movie. We release new episodes every Thursday. We are a completely independently produced affair, so the best way to support us is to rate and review the show on your favorite podcast app and to subscribe to our Patreon over at patreon.com/revolutionspermovie, where you can get exclusive weekly bonus episodes every Sunday, as well as one-of-a-kind handmade Revolutions Per Movie goods that I send out to you. You can follow the show on social media at Revolutions Per Movie and find more information about our various guests in the episode show notes. Thanks again, and we'll see you next week. Bye!